Welcome. Welcome to this space we are creating together. Take a breath. Settle in. What follows is not meant to be believed, but felt, not grasped, but recognized. So let go of needing to understand and simply be here. Healing the ancestral wound, a vision of returning to wholeness. We begin in stillness, not as an escape, but as a return to the place beneath all stories, where the body remembers what the mind forgets. This is a journey into the hidden architecture of suffering, not to pathologize it, but to understand it, to meet it with clarity, with compassion, with truth. We speak of ancestral trauma, the echoes of unresolved pain passed silently through generations. We speak of childhood wounds, not just events, but the absence of attunement, the rupture of safety, the shaping of identity around unmet needs. We speak of the mother wound, the father wound, not to blame, but to reveal the archetypal imprints that form the scaffolding of our inner world. We explore the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine, not as gendered roles, but as living energies seeking integration within the psyche. We name repetition compulsion, the unconscious reenactment of old patterns, where the past masquerades as the present, and pain seeks resolution through familiar scripts. And we do all this not from the vantage of separation, but from the ground of oneness, from the understanding that trauma is not just personal, it is relational, ancestral, collective. And healing is not just psychological, it is spiritual, embodied, whole. So let us begin, not with answers, but with presence, not with judgment, but with curiosity, not with resistance, but with reverence for the mystery of what it means to be human. I share this framework not as theory, but because I have walked this exact terrain. I have felt the weight of ancestral wounds, the ache of the mother wound, the pull of repetition compulsion. And I have discovered, through years of deep work, that these patterns were not my enemy. They were invitations to remembering. So let me share with you what this journey looked like in my own lived experience. Not because my story is special, but because, perhaps, you will recognize yourself in it. The architecture of self-erasure. For years, I shaped my life around unhealed wounds. I did not know this at the time. I thought I was simply being kind, being open, being loving. But in truth, I was erasing myself. I maintained friendships built on illusion, relationships where I dimmed my light so others would not feel threatened, where I swallowed my truth so I would not disturb the peace, where I performed a version of myself, carefully edited, just palatable enough to belong. This was not connection. This was survival, dressed as friendship. And in romantic relationships, the pattern grew even clearer. I sought intimacy from a place of brokenness, not from wholeness, not from overflow, but from lack, from a deep, aching belief that I was incomplete and needed someone else to make me whole. And so, I drew to me people who were themselves wounded, unavailable, unable to love in the ways I longed for, because on some unconscious level, this felt familiar. This felt like home. I denied my own authority. I abandoned my potential. I silenced my creativity. I sought permission from others to exist, to express myself, to feel worthy. I clung to crumbs of affection and called them love. A kind word, a fleeting moment of attention, a brief acknowledgement of my existence. I held these fragments as though they were treasure, and convinced myself that if I just gave more, tried harder, made myself smaller, maybe then I would finally receive the love I craved. But this pattern, this repetition compulsion, always returned me to the same place. Suffering, disappointment, mistreatment, pain. Over and over, the same familiar outcomes. Different faces, different circumstances, but the same wound, seeking the same resolution through the same script. I did not understand then what I understand now, that these patterns were not failures, they were teachers. Each painful repetition was an opportunity to see more clearly, to recognize that the love I sought outside was actually a call to return inside, to the wholeness I had abandoned. The first vision. During a period of deep inner work, on 2 consecutive milestones, something opened. Not through effort, not through seeking, simply awareness revealing itself. I saw myself lying in a coffin, buried in earth, surrounded by family, yet simultaneously alive. Looking down upon this scene as pure presence, neither the one in the grave nor separate from it, just witnessing. Then the vision shifted. Each member of my family appeared in that same grave, and I beheld them from the same vantage point, neither inside nor outside, neither living nor dead, simply seeing. This was not morbid fantasy, it was recognition. The part of me, conditioned by family, the inherited patterns, the absorbed wounds, the unconscious loyalties, the ancestral echoes, the mother wound, the father wound, the pattern of self-erasure that had shaped every relationship, every friendship, every romantic connection, had to die, and I had to mourn. Not the loss of people, but the severance of psychic ties that had kept me tethered to old suffering. The death of seeking permission to exist. The death of mistaking crumbs for sustenance. This death was not abandonment. It was liberation, a necessary shedding for evolution and freedom to unfold. The pattern revealed. Insight does not arrive all at once, fully formed, final. Sometimes it comes disguised as illusion, a last test before clarity. After a retreat, I met someone. In deep meditation, a vision arose, a lifetime of devotion. I saw myself loving unconditionally, forgiving the unforgivable, giving everything, enduring everything. The vision felt absolute, prophetic, destined. And so, I believed it. I pursued it. But this person showed no particular interest during the retreat. They were clearly healing from their own trauma, visibly wounded, in ways perhaps not yet understood. But I did not see this clearly. I saw only what I needed to see. A soulmate, a completion, a meaning I thought was missing from my life. I recognize now what drew me. Not love, not destiny, but familiarity. I have always been attracted to brokenness, to wounded people, especially in intimate relationships. I convinced myself it was my purpose to rescue them, to see potential where there was none, to project love where none had been shown. Because if I could heal them, perhaps I would finally be worthy. If I could fix them, perhaps I would earn the right to exist. And because of this pattern, this repetition compulsion, this unconscious reenactment of old wounds absorbed in childhood, I have suffered heartbreak, mistreatment, abuse, loss. The pattern was not about them. It was about me. Specifically, it was about my identification with brokenness, the mother wound, the rupture of safety, the shaping of identity around unmet needs, the denial of my own authority, my potential, my creativity, an unconscious drive to reenact what was never resolved. The past masquerading as the present. The lesson arrives through pain. I did not succeed in making contact after the retreat, but I learned. The vision was mine alone. The devotion I imagined was a projection of my own unlived potential, not a shared destiny. The lesson had to arrive through pain for it to be etched deeply enough to change me. Another retreat, another encounter, another pattern. This time, someone asked to share accommodation despite my having other plans. I did not resonate during the retreat. I questioned perspectives, felt misaligned. Yet I said yes. Why? The old hunger, the possibility of merging, of intimacy, of temporary dissolution into another. The crumbs of affection I had learned to call love. The inner masculine and feminine seeking integration through another body. It didn't unfold as I'd hoped. The pain was immediate, overwhelming. What felt like an anxiety attack, a collapse of the fantasy I had secretly constructed. Again, the lesson came through suffering, because only pain, it seems, could break through the layers of denial I had built. The divine entanglement. At yet another retreat, I had a revelation about someone, older, a parent, recently separated. In meditation, I felt what I interpreted as a divine entanglement between our souls. I told myself this meant something. I convinced myself to pursue connection. After the retreat, I stayed up late into the night, talking for hours, fantasizing about crossing great distances to be together. In our conversations, they assessed me, interviewed me, asked personal questions to evaluate my worth, my suitability, my potential usefulness. And I, desperate to be chosen, advertised myself, once again seeking permission to be worthy. I absorbed their emotional baggage, hoping it would make me indispensable. I offered myself as a solution to their pain, mistaking utility for love. My mother wound was so deep that I believed I could not have a whole, meaningful life without someone's love to validate my existence. The anima, the inner feminine, projected outward, seeking completion in another. The turning. Healing began when I forgave myself, not for the mistakes, but for carrying old wounds forward into the present, for seeking outside myself what was never lost, for believing that wholeness was something I needed to find, rather than something I already was. This shift, this recognition, freed up space to experience my own inherent wholeness, space to feel the boundless love that is always present, not as a concept, but as lived reality, space to reclaim my authority, space to honour my potential, space to unleash my creativity, space to integrate the anima and animus within myself, space to tune into my intuition and reconnect with my inherent power. This process is still unfolding. It is not finished. It may never be finished. But I am no longer afraid of being alone. I no longer believe that someone or something out there can complete me or give my life meaning. I found all of that within myself. When I healed the old wounds, when I stopped the repetition, when I ceased seeking what I already possessed, when I stopped erasing myself to belong, when I stopped clinging to crumbs and calling them nourishment, the freedom of non-seeking. I no longer chase others to merge with them, to extract intimacy from them, or to use them as mirrors to confirm my existence. I no longer seek companions to keep me company and validate that I am real. I no longer build friendships on the foundation of self-erasure. I found myself whole. And from this place of wholeness, I relate to the world differently. This change has been profound. I have better experiences with people now. I maintain boundaries that protect me from old repetition compulsions. I no longer unconsciously seek potential sources of harm, wearing new faces. I no longer deny my authority, my potential, my creativity to make others comfortable. The familiar scripts have lost their power. The vision revisited. The grave I saw was not an ending. It was a beginning. The death it represented was not literal. It was symbolic. The death of conditioned selfhood. The death of seeking completion outside. The death of ancestral patterns that no longer served. The death of the repetition compulsion. The death of self-erasure as a strategy for belonging. And what remains after that death? Awareness itself, presence, the capacity to witness without identifying, the freedom to love without needing to possess, the courage to exist without seeking permission, the wholeness that was never actually absent. This is not just personal healing, it is relational, ancestral, collective. When one person breaks the cycle, integrates what was fragmented, returns to wholeness, the ripples extend, backward and forward, through lineages. The mother wound, acknowledged and honoured, begins to heal. The father wound, witnessed with compassion, softens. The anima and animus find their sacred marriage within. And from this ground of oneness, we recognize that trauma was never just mine, and healing is never just for me. We are all weaving the same tapestry, each thread connected to every other, each wound an invitation to remembering, each moment of integration a gift to the whole. I am not separate from what I sought. I never was. The soulmate, the divine entanglement, the completion, all of it was already here, within the boundless awareness that I am. Not as a person to find, but as the ground of being itself. And so we return to where we began, in stillness, not as an escape, but as a homecoming, to the place beneath all stories, where the body remembers what the mind forgets, that we are whole. We have always been whole, that love is not something we seek. Love is what we are. Here, now, always.